So back in 2011, I played a game called Limbo, and little did I know at the time, but I was starting to play a new subgenre of horror game. Then in 2016, we had another game called Inside. This was seen as a spiritual successor to Limbo, and obviously from the same studio, Playdead. In this game again, you take control of a small child. You're not given any context to preamble, it's just literally what you see is what you get, and you have to kind of figure out what this world is, get the child through it. And this game was much more fleshed out in terms of models and mechanics, but it was still the basic same idea. It was then a year later in 2017 that a different studio wanted to try the same like subgenre of game. Tastier Studios came along with Little Nightmares. This was a game set in the same idea, the same context. You take control of a little person, a little creature, and you just start moving through the environment. There's no words, there's no story to tell you what's going on. You are just literally placed in control of the child and you set off. These games felt like an evolution of the blueprint that Playdead had hammered out, and they made the rooms much more fleshed out with three-dimensional objects, tables, chairs, and it felt like a much more solid, in-depth game than the prior two games. And this also gave them much more freedom in terms of the puzzles and the different challenges that the children would face. So since the first Little Nightmares, we've actually had two more games. The second one was made by Tastier Studios as well, but as that was being finalised and finished, the company was actually bought by Embracer Group. So because the IP was still owned by Bandai Namco, the company, the devs, decided to move on and start a brand new game. So sorry it took a while to get to the actual game I'm reviewing. I just wanted to give a bit of history into how this game came about and the games prior building up to it. So here we are, this is called Reanimal. This is the brand new game from Tastier Studios. They are now with a different publisher, and this is them going back to what they know. And I'll be honest with you, if you first look at it, you could be forgiven for thinking this is another Little Nightmares game. So in terms of the blueprint, the way the game is formed, this is almost identical. You start the game and there is no story laid on you. It's just literally, it opens. You're in a boat, you're bobbing around in the ocean, it's nighttime, there's mist all around you, and the only thing you can see is you in the boat. You're a small child and there's a distant light in the far distance, and so you just instinctively start making your way towards it. Very soon after, you rescue another small person out of the water, and then you both head towards the shore, and that's where your adventure starts. Now I say almost identical because there is something that happens right at the beginning of the game that, as far as I can remember, doesn't happen in any of the prior games, and that is speech. So when you first drag your friend out of the water, the girl says something and the boy says something, and it gives you an indication of what's going on, and you don't get that in other games of this genre. So you know that there are other people missing, and this boy thinks the girl was dead. So obviously they were in some type of event or crash or a catastrophe before the situation you're in now, and so that gives you some hints at the story, and that there are other people, other small people out on the island that you have to rescue. In all of these games there is one theme that seems to have transferred from one game to another, and that is the cityscape that comes with them. Quite often you start off in the countryside, there's grass, maybe a farmhouse, that kind of thing. But very soon you end up in these big cityscapes, these big dystopian, urban-looking environments. And you've got walls, you've got houses, you've got doors, and you've got all these remnants of industry around you, like old telegraph poles, equipment. And it is this kind of eerie environment that is the backdrop to this game. So something they used quite a lot in these games, especially from Little Nightmares going forward, was that they want to make the world seem massive and like it was almost designed for these bigger creatures. And so you don't feel at home, you don't feel like you even belong there. Doors, tables, chairs, every structure feels like this gargantuan landscape. Even a room can seem like a field going across. As you move from set piece to set piece, there are various themes that come with each one. Sometimes you'll be sneaking through and there'll be like a big creature that you need to avoid and they'll be looking for you. So it'll be pretty obvious what you need to do, like duck down and hide underneath the table or hide behind an object. And then there'll be certain parts where you just have to run. And sometimes you engage in these massive chase sequences where somebody will be in like a truck chasing you down a hillside, or somebody is trying to get through a building to get to you, and you have to go at breakneck speed to get to the end. And these chase sequences are fantastic. They really are well directed, and the camera works really well, and they really get your heart pumping. So there are some things in this game that I'm not exactly sure about, and one of them is the implementation of like a weapon system. So if once you get your crowbar, you can use that as like a weapon, and the girl is the same thing, and it is used quite a lot, more than I would like to actually. There is one sequence where you're in a house and they've got these small childlike creatures that look about the same size as you, and as they approach you, you can hit them with your crowbar. Now, the combat is not very in depth. You are literally just hammering away with attack and hitting them as they come. And because it's used quite a lot, I feel like it almost takes away a bit from the game's atmosphere, because I like the feeling of being threatened, and also that you can't fight back. That's part of the horror of these games, is you're so outnumbered and so outsized that you have no chance of fighting back, and this chips away at that idea a little bit. So when you first start playing the game, you've got to play it either solo or co-op. And I personally would say, if you've got a friend who wants to play as well, play it co-op. Because the AI, while it gets all the big things right, like opening doors and all the big actions you can do together, the girl follows you around a little bit behind, and sometimes it doesn't feel as good as it could have been in terms of the way she moves. I'd also say that when you're in dangerous situations, the girl and the other allies, or friends, they just cannot be hurt or killed. The focus is completely on you, and I think that's a shame, really, because they feel almost like these indestructible things following you around. I would like it if they had been in a bit more peril, but that's just me. One thing I think that deserves special mention is the camera system. It's really good. As you go into static scenes like a room or like an outside a garage, the camera kind of pans around and you can move your right stick to kind of put it where you want. But then as you move from scene to scene, the camera actually follows you like some kind of like floating drone. And they've done really well with this, because it's not just on rails. It kind of feels like it's had a bit of direction in there. So one part in particular, I'm outside this house and I'm climbing up the gantry, and then I go in through the window, and the camera just flawlessly just follows me in through the window in a really dramatic way. And yeah, I really appreciated that. It adds another layer of cinematography to the game, and it builds tension. So yeah, really well done with that. There was some unfortunate business happening before the game actually launched, so I always straight away go to Steam to check user reviews just to see if there's any issues outstanding straight away, just to give me like a heads up on what's going on. And I was amazed and shocked to see that the game was launching with overwhelmingly negative reviews, and I was like, what the hell's going on? Long story short, this was down to the Friends Pass not launching with the game. Now, the developers have been very clear and open about this. They had said that they were going to try and get the Friends Pass in place ready for launch, but they may not do it because they were trying to get the game out to people. Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think most people don't actually realise just how damaging a negative review on Steam is, because if it builds up momentum and you get a situation like this where it's overwhelmingly negative, that is going to cause a massive amount of damage to their reputation, to the early sales, people getting put off. It's going to cause problems with bonuses. Other investors could come in and say, look, what's going on, guys? And it could lose a lot of money. It's just such a bad situation. And over something so trivial as a Friends Pass not being ready like the second it launched. Now, I think it was a mistake by Tarsier. I thought if it was me, I would have made sure I had that Friends Pass in place, ready for day one. But like I said, they were very honest about that. They were just trying to get the game finished. And in actual fact, Steam players could have gone onto the cooperative system where you can play remote co-op and go through that. And me and my son did that, and it worked perfectly fine. So what they were getting annoyed about was actually in place anyway. It was just the official Friends Pass wasn't in place. Now, it's worth mentioning that some people have actually been complaining about the length of the game, and I think this game probably took me about 7 or 8 hours to complete. And like I've said, in that time you see so many different scenes and events. It feels like a longer game, but I really do wish people would stop trying to compare games in terms of length and how many hours you get, because sometimes you'll get a game that's 200 hours long and it's just boring, repetitive, doing the same old thing all the way through. And yet you'll play a game like Forlorn Sales, which is a really good indie game, and it's only like 2 or 3 hours long, but it's such a profound emotional journey. I really do value them 2 or 3 hours, and so I do think this is something that I would hope people start to realise about game time. And I think the 7 or 8 hours you get from Reanimal is absolutely spot on and perfect. So the question, do I recommend Reanimal? And the answer is a very easy yes, I definitely do. If you love this type of game, if you like games like Inside or Limbo or Little Nightmares obviously, then this is just an easy recommendation. It's such a close hit to Little Nightmares and yet feels a little bit more evolved. It's a bit more advanced. The visuals are slightly more in detail, and they've done way more with the camera direction and the way the levels move together. So yeah, that's my review for Reanimal. Thanks for stopping by, guys. Thank you for watching it till the end. I would love a like and a subscription, and if you could leave a comment, let me know what you think of the video, any comments, any feedback, any criticisms, and tell me, have you played any of the games I've mentioned in this, Limbo or Inside or any of the Little Nightmare games?